In every age, humanity has pushed the limits of what was possible, and sometimes, those limits were shattered so completely that even modern science struggles to explain how. Across deserts and jungles, from the blacksmith's flame to the philosopher's mind, ancient inventors built weapons so advanced they seemed to belong to another world. These weren't the crude tools of barbarians or simple hunters. They were works of art shaped by chemistry, physics, and mathematics long before those words even existed. When archaeologists first uncovered them, many refused to believe the evidence. How could civilizations thousands of years ago create steel that rivals our best alloys? How could they build machines that could throw fire, or weapons that moved like living creatures? It is easy to think of the ancient world as primitive of warriors with spears and stones. But dig deep enough into history, and you begin to realize something unsettling. We may not be as unique or as advanced as we think. Somewhere between myth and reality, a few ancient craftspeople discovered secrets we've only recently begun to understand. They forged metals that resisted rust for millennia, created chemical compounds that burned underwater, and engineered war machines that still puzzle scientists today. Their knowledge was often guarded like treasure, hidden within priesthoods, passed through coded manuscripts, or buried with their makers. When their civilizations fell, so did their secrets. All that remains are fragments. A weapon too perfect for its era. A tool that doesn't fit the timeline, a mystery that refuses to die. From the temples of Egypt to the icy fjords of Scandinavia, from India's sacred forges to China's imperial armories, these artifacts tell a forgotten story. Not just of war, but of genius. Because in every age, there were those who looked at the impossible and made it real. And it all began in the golden sands of the Nile, where bronze curved into a blade that changed the shape of warfare itself. Let's begin our journey in the scorching deserts of ancient Egypt, where pharaohs didn't just rule with divine authority, they enforced it with a weapon so uniquely designed that it remained unmatched for over 1,000 years. The Khopesh. Just saying the name conjures images of golden tombs and hieroglyphic mysteries. But this wasn't just another sword. Its distinctive sickle shape, curving forward from the handle with a sharpened outer edge, represented a revolutionary approach to warfare that modern weapons experts have spent decades trying to fully understand. Here's what makes it extraordinary. While most ancient weapons were designed to do one thing well, the Khopesh was a multi-tool of death. That curve wasn't decorative or symbolic. It was pure functional genius. The inner curve could hook an enemy's shield, ankle, or neck, pulling them off balance. The outer edge delivered devastating slashing cuts that conventional straight swords simply couldn't match, and the tip? It could thrust forward for piercing attacks when needed. But the innovation goes deeper than just the shape. Recent metallurgical analysis has revealed that Egyptian smiths were using bronze alloys with precisely calculated tin content, creating a metal that was both hard enough to hold an edge and flexible enough not to shatter on impact. This level of metallurgical understanding wasn't supposed to exist for centuries after the Khopesh first appeared around 2500 BCE. Egyptian warriors trained for years to master the Khopesh's unique combat style. Unlike straight swords that relied on linear attacks, the Khopesh demanded circular, flowing movements. A skilled wielder could disarm an opponent, destroy their shield, and deliver a killing blow in one continuous motion. Ancient texts describe training exercises where warriors would practice hooking and pulling movements against wooden posts, developing the specific muscle memory needed to exploit the weapon's curved design. What's fascinating is that the Khopesh didn't just appear out of nowhere. Its design evolution shows us how ancient engineers solved problems through iteration and refinement. Early versions were heavy and unwieldy, but over centuries the curve was perfected, the weight distribution optimized, and the metallurgy enhanced. This wasn't random experimentation. This was systematic technological development. And here is where it connects to our next weapon. The Khopesh taught ancient metallurgists critical lessons about how metal behaves under stress, how curves affect force distribution, and how design can multiply a weapon's effectiveness. These lessons would travel across trade routes and inspire innovations in distant lands. From the forge, we moved to the laboratory, where Byzantine scientists created something so terrifying, so militarily decisive, that its very formula became one of history's most closely guarded state secrets. Greek fire. Just hearing those words struck terror into the hearts of medieval warriors. Imagine you're a sailor in the 7th century approaching the walls of Constantinople. Suddenly, bronze tubes mounted on Byzantine ships erupt with jets of liquid flame. The fire hits the water, and instead of extinguishing, it spreads across the surface like a living thing. Ships that have weathered countless storms are consumed in minutes. Men dive into the sea to escape, only to find the water itself has become an inferno. This wasn't just advanced for its time. Some historians argue we didn't develop anything comparable until modern napalm in the 20th century. That's a technology gap of over 1,000 years. So what made Greek fire so devastating? First, it burned on water, which violated every logical expectation of how fire should behave. Second, it was pressurized and projected through bronze siphons, creating the ancient world's first flamethrower. Third, and most mysterious, ancient accounts claim that trying to extinguish it with water only made it burn hotter and spread faster. Modern chemists have proposed dozens of theories about its composition. Most agree it likely contained petroleum, sulfur, quicklime, and possibly saltpeter. But the exact formula and preparation method? Gone. The Byzantines protected this secret with such zealous security that only the emperor and a select few chemists ever knew the complete recipe. It was never written down in full. Knowledge passed from master to apprentice in sealed workshops guarded by the empire's best soldiers. When Constantinople finally fell in 1453, the secret died with the last chemists who knew it. Some historians believe this was intentional, a final act of defiance to ensure this weapon of mass destruction didn't fall into enemy hands. But here is the connection to our broader story. Greek fire represents a crucial leap from mechanical weapons to chemical warfare. The Byzantines understood that warfare wasn't just about sharper edges and stronger armor. It was about leveraging chemistry, physics, and psychology. This weapon succeeded not just because it burned hot, but because it was psychologically devastating. Enemies would surrender rather than face it. This principle of psychological warfare through technological superiority would echo through every subsequent weapon innovation, including our next entry, which took the concept of intimidation to entirely new heights. While the Byzantines mastered chemistry, the Thracian tribes of ancient Eastern Europe were pushing the absolute limits of metallurgical engineering with a weapon that seemed to defy the laws of physics. The rhomphaia wasn't just big. It was monumentally, impossibly large. Picture a blade as tall as a man, sometimes reaching 6 to 7 feet in length, mounted on a wooden pole. This wasn't a sword in any conventional sense. It was a polearm with a massive curved blade that could cleave through shields, armor, and multiple enemies with a single devastating arc. Roman legionaries, veterans of countless campaigns who had faced every imaginable weapon, reported that the rhomphaia inspired genuine fear. Historical accounts describe Thracian warriors using two-handed overhead strikes that would split Roman shields vertically and continue through the man behind them. The reach alone was terrifying, allowing Thracian fighters to strike from distances where Roman short swords were completely useless. But here's the engineering mystery that has puzzled historians for generations. How did ancient smiths create blades this large without them breaking? Steel this long should snap under its own weight during combat stress. Ancient forges shouldn't have been able to produce uniform heating across such massive pieces of metal. The metalworking techniques required shouldn't have existed. Yet when archaeologists examine surviving examples and fragments, they find sophisticated forging techniques. Differential hardening, where the edge is made harder than the spine to prevent shattering. Pattern welding, where multiple pieces of iron and steel are forge welded together to create a blade with superior properties. Carbon distribution that rivals industrial-age steel production. The Thracians weren't just making big swords. They were pushing metallurgical science to its absolute limits and discovering principles that medieval European smiths wouldn't rediscover for another 1,000 years. What's remarkable is how these innovations spread. When Rome finally conquered Thrace, they didn't just absorb the territory. They absorbed the technology. Roman weaponsmiths studied captured rhomphias, learning techniques that would improve their own weapons. Trade routes carried these metallurgical secrets to distant lands, where they influenced weapon development across Eurasia. This brings us to a crucial point about ancient weapons development. It wasn't isolated genius. It was an interconnected web of technological exchange. The metallurgical advances that made the rhomphaia possible would directly influence our next weapon, which took these principles to even more extreme lengths. From the mountains of Thrace, we travel to the temples of ancient India, where warriors developed a weapon so aerodynamically sophisticated that modern physicists struggle to explain how it functions. The chakram appears deceptively simple. A flat steel ring, perfectly circular, sharpened on the outer edge. No moving parts. No complex mechanisms. Just geometric perfection transformed into a lethal projectile, but that simplicity is deceptive. The chakram represents mastery of principles that wouldn't be formally understood until modern aerodynamics and gyroscopic physics were developed centuries later. A skilled warrior could throw a chakram with such precision that it would slice through limbs, cut bowstrings, or decapitate enemies at distances up to 50 meters. The weapon would spin through the air with incredible stability, maintaining its trajectory despite wind or obstacles. And here's where it gets truly remarkable. In the hands of a master, a chakram could be thrown to circle around obstacles, curve mid-flight, or even return to the thrower like a deadly boomerang. Ancient training manuals, the few that survived British colonial attempts to destroy them, describe techniques that sound impossible. Warriors would practice for decades to master the precise wrist rotation, release angle, and spin velocity needed to control the weapon's flight path. They understood intuitively what modern physics explains mathematically, that a spinning disc creates gyroscopic stability. That angle of release determines trajectory, and that the weapon's perfect balance is what allows such precision. But the chakram's sophistication goes beyond throwing mechanics, creating one required metallurgical precision that rivals modern manufacturing. The ring had to be perfectly circular within fractions of a millimeter. Any imbalance would cause it to tumble in flight. The edge had to be uniformly sharpened around the entire circumference. The weight distribution had to be absolutely consistent. Indian smiths developed specialized tools and techniques specifically for crafting chakrams. They would hammer the steel while it was red hot, constantly measuring and adjusting to maintain perfect circularity. They would use water displacement methods to check weight distribution. They understood quality control principles that wouldn't be formalized in manufacturing theory until the Industrial Revolution. The British colonial authorities recognized how dangerous this weapon and its associated knowledge were. They systematically banned chakram training and destroyed written manuals. Why? Because the chakram represented something that challenged their technological superiority narrative. How could ancient Indian warriors possess such advanced understanding of physics and metallurgy? This pattern of advanced knowledge being suppressed or lost connects directly to our next weapon, which represents perhaps the most sophisticated mechanical design in ancient warfare. Staying in India, we encounter a weapon so mechanically complex that when Western historians first learned about it, many dismissed it as myth or exaggeration. The urami, also called the whip sword, consists of multiple flexible steel blades, each several feet long, attached to a single handle. When not in use, these blades coil around the warrior's waist like a steel belt. But when swung, they extend outward in a spinning vortex of razor-sharp metal that can strike from impossible angles and unpredictable directions. This weapon should not exist. The engineering challenges are immense. Each blade must be flexible enough to coil and bend, yet rigid enough to cut through armor when swung with force. The attachment points must allow complete freedom of movement while being strong enough to withstand combat stress. The wielder must master techniques that go against every instinct of conventional swordsmanship. Ancient smiths solved these problems through innovations that demonstrate sophisticated understanding of material science. They created blades with varying thickness along their length, thicker near the handle for strength, thinner toward the tip for flexibility. They used specific steel alloys with precise carbon content to achieve the right balance of flexibility and hardness. They developed specialized heat treatment processes to give different properties to different sections of the same blade. Training with the urani was legendary for its difficulty and danger. Warriors would spend years practicing with a single blade before adding additional blades. Training grounds had special poles placed at various distances and angles, forcing students to develop the spatial awareness needed to strike targets all around them simultaneously. Many warriors bore scars from their own weapons, testaments to the years required to master its use. But here's what makes the urami truly revolutionary. It represents the first weapon designed specifically to overcome defensive formations. Traditional swords could be blocked by shields or parried by other blades. But the urami's flexible blades could flow around defenses. striking over shields, around armor, or from behind the warrior's own body. A single skilled Urumi fighter could hold off multiple opponents by creating a defensive sphere of spinning blades that was nearly impossible to penetrate. The mechanical principles embodied in the Urumi influenced weapon development across Asia. The understanding that flexibility could be weaponized, that multiple independent striking surfaces could overwhelm defenses, and that unconventional weapons could defeat superior numbers through confusion and unpredictability would shape military thinking for centuries. From the complexity of the Urumi, we move to a weapon that demonstrates how sustained technological refinement across centuries can produce near perfection. The Chinese Dao, particularly the versions developed during the Han and Tang dynasties, represents the culmination of thousands of years of metallurgical evolution. While it might look like just another curved sword, the Dao embodies innovations that wouldn't be matched by European bladesmiths until the Renaissance. Chinese weaponsmiths pioneered sophisticated forging techniques that created blades with properties that seem almost contradictory. The edge was incredibly hard, capable of holding a razor's sharpness that could slice through bamboo and silk alike. But the spine was more flexible, absorbing impact energy and preventing the blade from shattering. This differential hardening required precise control of heating and cooling processes that demanded master-level expertise. The secret lay in how they worked the steel. Chinese smiths would fold the metal dozens, or even hundreds of times, creating thousands of microscopic layers. This process, which the Japanese would later adopt and perfect in katana production, eliminated impurities and created a blade with grain structure that gave it superior strength. They would then apply clay to different parts of the blade before heating and quenching it in water. The clay-covered areas cooled slowly, remaining softer, while exposed areas cooled rapidly, becoming extremely hard. But the Dao's innovation went beyond the blade itself. The entire weapon was designed as an integrated system. The curve of the blade was mathematically optimized for slashing cuts, using the warrior's momentum to maximize cutting power. The guard was designed to protect the hand while allowing quick transitions between offensive and defensive positions. Even the handle wrapping used specific materials and patterns that enhanced grip while allowing the weapon to be wielded for extended periods without fatigue. Military treatises from ancient China described training regimens that were as sophisticated as the weapons themselves. Warriors learned specific cutting angles that exploited the blade's curve. They practiced footwork that maximized the weapon's reach while maintaining balance. They studied how different striking velocities affected cutting power and penetration. The Dao became the standard military weapon of Chinese infantry for over 1,000 years, not because tradition demanded it, but because it was genuinely superior to alternatives. This longevity itself is evidence of how well designed it was. In warfare, inferior weapons get replaced quickly. The Dao's dominance across multiple dynasties and countless battles proves its effectiveness. All of these weapons impressive as they are pale in comparison to our final entry. This weapon doesn't just push the boundaries of ancient technology. It obliterates them and forces us to completely reconsider what ancient smiths were capable of. Across multiple ancient civilizations separated by vast oceans and thousands of years, Egyptian pharaohs, Norse warriors, Tibetan mystics, and Inuit hunters all prized weapons forged from a material they called sky iron or star metal. We know it as meteoric iron, and it represents one of the most profound metallurgical achievements in human history. When a meteor survives atmospheric entry and impacts Earth, it brings with it iron that was forged in the heart of dying stars billions of years ago. This meteoric iron contains nickel, cobalt, and other elements in combinations that simply don't occur in terrestrial ore. The result is metal with properties that ancient smiths recognized as superior but couldn't fully explain. Blades forged from meteoric iron were harder, held an edge longer, and possessed a distinctive crystalline pattern called Widman-Staton figures that made them instantly recognizable. These patterns, formed by the incredibly slow cooling of molten metal over millions of years in space, create geometric designs that look almost technological, like circuit boards etched into steel. But here's where things get truly mysterious. Working meteoric iron requires temperatures and techniques that should have been far beyond ancient capabilities. Meteoric iron has a higher melting point than terrestrial iron and contains impurities that make it brittle if not properly treated. Modern metallurgists use electric furnaces and precisely controlled atmospheres to work with this material. How did ancient smiths, with charcoal forges and bronze tools, successfully smelt and forge meteoric iron. Archaeological discoveries suggest they developed techniques we're only beginning to understand. In the Sahara, researchers found ancient forging sites that used focused sunlight and carefully positioned bronze mirrors to achieve extreme temperatures. In the Andes, high-altitude forges combined thin air, volcanic vents, and forced air systems to create blast furnace conditions thousands of years before the Industrial Revolution. Even more puzzling, electron microscope analysis of ancient meteoric blades reveals forging techniques that align with modern understanding of crystallography and metallurgy. Some blades show evidence of pattern welding at the molecular level, with carbon distribution so precise it appears intentionally engineered. Others contain alloy compositions that modern materials science has only recently learned to produce deliberately. Ancient texts hint at knowledge that borders on the inexplicable. Egyptian papyri describe smiths who spoke to the metal and taught it to remember the cold of the void. Norse sagas tell of weapons that carried memories of the cosmic forge and possessed almost supernatural qualities in battle. Are these just poetic descriptions of superior metallurgy? Or did ancient smiths possess theoretical understanding that we've lost? Recent analysis has discovered something even more disturbing. Some meteoric blades show signs of having been partially worked before they reached Earth. Not by aliens, but by natural processes in space. The extreme pressures and temperatures during meteor formation can create pre-aligned crystal structures that ancient smiths somehow recognized and exploited. They weren't just forging metal. They were collaborating with cosmic forces to create weapons that transcended earthly limitations.